Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give our sponsors a shout out. Now, come on, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. I really recommend that you try them out. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the podcast. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all their different events, or to show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to showcase your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out today. We also want to thank our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. Our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school. Coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We want to say thank you to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their video boards in action. The best purchase I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to see all the things they can do. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. It's used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college programs. And whether it's a social media post celebrating a big win or an entire newsletter promoting your program, the Gipper team will have you creating world-class content in seconds. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com for more information. We want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. I know I did, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results. Their student athlete eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. That's homecampus.com. We want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. My assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got their master's at Ohio University, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months totally online. And while you're completing your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get started, just call 800-730-2753, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We'd like to say thanks to our good friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com for more information. That's huddle.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. Find out all the things that they can do for you and your school, whether it's more support or more security, even more customization. The Hometown team is going to help you make the best online ticketing solution. It's digital ticketing that offers more. And we'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Now, athletic surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that support your program. And having that data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. You're in for a treat today. If you're new to the podcast, it'll be your first time, maybe. If you're a longtime listener, we brought back someone from season one, actually, episode number 102 of our current 600 plus episodes. We're going to be visiting with Nate Larsen. Nate is a certified master athletic administrator, has a tremendous background in athletics. He's currently the activities director for the O'Neill public school system. That's in O'Neill, Nebraska. He's going to tell us about that. Before we get going, Nate, I also want to offer congratulations on your recent award at the NIAAA National Conference. Very well deserved. Nate Larsen, welcome back to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations to you as well. We were in some pretty good company that night for sure.
Oh, I don't know about you. I'm looking around and going, geez, am I in the right group here? But, absolutely. It was a great evening, a lot of fun. And again, very, you and I talked about this, very honored and humbled to be included in that group. Well, let's go and jump into your story. Again, for listeners, Nate was on season one when our podcast was young. He's had some changes in his career. So if you were a listener back then, Nate, kind of take us through the quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up.
Yep.
Just take us up maybe through your high school and college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Nate Larsen origin story?
Born and raised Lincoln, Nebraska. Was fortunate to attend Lincoln Southeast High School, where Dad was a teacher and a coach. So I got to play for a lot of coaches that their names are pretty heavy hitters in the state of Nebraska, and guys that I had known my whole life, having been a ball boy and a water boy for about as long as I could walk, up until that point. I played football in high school, and then went on to the University of Nebraska. I was not athletic enough to participate in any sports beyond the intramural realm there, but was pretty fortunate to have a front row seat for what I think was, biased a little bit, but maybe the best college football team of all time in the '95 Huskers, and completed my degree in social sciences education, and started my teaching and coaching career from there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that the University of Nebraska for a generation or maybe a couple generations of coaches. They can't remember because they weren't there. What a national powerhouse Nebraska football was back in those days, and even before. With Tom Osborne and Devaney and just the history. For you growing up, I mean, was that the deal? Did every, schoolboy, aspire to play for the Nebraska Cornhuskers?
Absolutely. There was no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. Growing up in Oregon, and again, I went to high school and college in the decade of the 70s, so that'll tell you how old I am. But growing up, of course, we rooted for, the Oregon Ducks, and it was some tough times back then. We had some good basketball teams, but football really didn't get going until, say, the early 90s. And, of course, now I'm crying in my chili here after the most recent game. But yeah, I mean, whatever excitement we have, I think in Oregon, I think that's probably multiply that by 10, and that's I'm guessing what it was back in Nebraska.
Yeah,
You
I was
oh, go ahead.
fortunate to start my formative years were the the quote unquote scoring explosion for the Huskers. So, Turner Gill and Mike Rozier and Irving Fryer, and those are pretty fun teams to watch.
Oh no, absolutely. I'm going to tell this story. A buddy of mine, high school coach in Oregon, uh, did a like a GA stint at Oregon State University. And so this would have been, I'm going to guess, maybe late 80s, early 90s. And they went back to play Nebraska. And again, Oregon State at this time was just like Oregon. They're not doing very good. And the uh, the stadium was just packed. It's 100% red. The crowd is going crazy. And he goes, as they're walking through the tunnels, or they're on the sideline, everybody, the fans, the staff, they're just, oh, well, can we get you anything? Oh, is everything okay? They were just the nicest people in the world. And then the team just came out and destroyed them. So he was just going, he never had such a roller coaster. Boy, this is pretty cool. And then, oh, wow, this is Division I football at the time. Um, you talked about growing up and having getting to be around and even play for some legends at that time. And again, you had a different experience because your dad was a coach. But was that something that you really thought, hey, I want to do that. I want to be like these guys. Was that a conscious thought for you?
Absolutely. And first and foremost, dad's the example. Dad, football, girls basketball, girls track. Didn't do girls track for as long. Just, having a family and trying to coach 3 varsity sports is an awful lot. But he started coaching football at Southeast in the 70s when a guy you may have heard of named Frank Solich was the head coach at Southeast High School at the time. Frank then went on to be a legendary assistant at Nebraska, and then Ohio University, one of your sponsors, kind of resurrected that program. Um, but Dad was fortunate to be a part of 8 state championships as an assistant football coach. He's got 10 state championships as a girls basketball coach and 8 state runner-up finishes. I think in his 36 years, he's averaging making the state finals every other year. So that was kind of the role model I got to be around. And obviously, coaches don't experience that kind of success without some phenomenal athletes. So, um, from kids that went on to play at some of the service academies to other Division I schools, I just got to be around and later coach some pretty outstanding individuals.
What a great environment. I mean, for anybody, to grow up in and to be exposed to. Obviously, there were I'm going to guess an endless number of lessons or tools, if you will, that you picked up along the way. Did your dad ever have occasion to go, hey, Nate, if you ever become a coach, make sure you do X, Y, and Z? Were there any, I know intentional is a big word nowadays. Were there any intentional moments, or was he just being a dad and teaching by example?
I'd say the vast majority of it was teaching by example, and probably, one of the biggest highlights of my career was when I was still in school. I had asked my dad, football was kind of my passion, and I had asked, can I help coach at Southeast as I was still going through the University of Nebraska because I knew, I'm studying education, I want to be a coach. What better way to get a head start than be around these guys? And Dad's response was, "Well, I'm not the head coach. You got to go talk to Coach Mazursky and ask him." So I went and asked the guy that I had played for and idolized. Can I please help coach? And he was gracious enough to let me. And one of those seasons that I served as an assistant on staff, I got to work directly with my dad on the reserve team. So that was a lot of fun. At the time, I don't know if he'd have given you the same answer, but I think now that he gets to look back, we can both say that was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot from him just in the way that that he would prepare. Um, the way that he interacted with kids, he they respected him, but he could have a lot of fun with them too. Um, and that's something I tried to carry with me.
Oh wow, that had to have been a great experience. I was very fortunate. Our three kids ended up coaching at schools where I was the AD. My son was our 1 year as our middle school football coach, and it's funny, to hear your kids say the same things word for word that you said when you were coaching them, but it's a different voice. Our oldest daughter coached our middle school track team 1 year, and that was the first time in the history of the school they won the championship. All the other coaches are going, I should have coached that team. I don't know if you would have had the same results as her. And then our youngest daughter, helped my wife for a number of years with cross country. But great experience, great experience. Let's go and take a break. For our listeners, our guest today is Nate Larsen, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, recent recipient of an NIAAA Distinguished Service Award for all the great things he does. He's going to share some of that later on. Let's take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check them out today. We also want to thank our good friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And all of our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com. It's used by over 8 million high school and college programs. Find out all the ways that Huddle can help you turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com.
Well, seeing Huddle there, and like I said, my background, Lincoln, Nebraska, that's Huddle's home base. But the two schools that I've been fortunate enough to serve as an athletic director for, we've been a Huddle school as well, and we've got focus cameras in all of our facilities, indoor and outdoor, and we love it.
Boy, thanks for sharing that. Again, as I say in my shout out, I knew about Huddle as a football coach, and when we were becoming a Huddle school, I was really a little nervous. Would the other coaches like it and appreciate it? And our volleyball coaches, our basketball coaches, all of our coaches just loved it. I remember walking through the gym, and they'd have their cell phone out and they're programming those focus cameras. Have you heard similar things from your coaches as well?
Very much so. And they love the ability with those to record practice. Without having to worry about having a manager there, they can record practice, share that video with the kids. So it's used as a teaching tool as much as anything else by our coaches. And I'll be honest, I'm a little jealous. We didn't have the huddle assist when I was coaching, and I remember spending a lot of Sundays doing stats and watching film and breaking stuff down stuff that when I talk to coaches now and mention doing that, they just kind of laugh and say that's done for us.
Oh, no, no. And I'll do you one better. After doing all those stats and breaking it down, the next day driving 3 hours to do the physical exchange with the VHS tape.
Yep.
Uh, well,
I
thanks for
started
sharing.
early enough. I did a little bit of that.
You did a little bit of that. All right. Hey, for our listeners, our guest today is Nate Larsen. He's a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the activities director. Of course, that includes athletics for the O'Neill Public School System. That's in O'Neill, Nebraska. Nate, I alluded earlier, and I think all of us, we have a journey that we're on. Some people's journey, it's 38 years at the same school. Like me, I was at a number of different schools. Share with our listeners your journey. After you graduated, what were some of the stops that have led you now to O'Neill.
Yeah, my first job out of college was in Auburn, Nebraska, teaching middle school social studies, coaching football and girls basketball. Um, and I got the opportunity to work for a guy named Dave Carlson as a head football coach. Um, to this day, still a great friend of mine. But he was a really good mentor for me. Just seeing a different way to do things than the program that I played in and coached as part of. It was seeing a new way to do things. So really kind of opened my eyes a little bit as a coach. And then I couldn't ask for any better in terms of allowing me to have some ownership in the program, not just position groups, but um, he allowed me to call the plays for the varsity team after working with me for a while, and like, oh, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. I'll trust him. Um, and probably one of the coolest things for me in my career. His son was my quarterback on the freshman football team my first year down there, and later on I was able to hire him as my head football coach at the school I was at the time, and my son, who was a freshman, got to play for him. So that was Auburn was a great stop. Absolutely loved it there, but unfortunately the school district was shrinking. Um, so at the end of my third year, I got a reduction in force notice. Um, I who knows? Everything happens for a reason. Um, and that allowed us. My wife and I spent a year in Omaha. She was hired up there before I had a job, so I mean, I knew we were moving. Um, I accepted a job with Omaha Public Schools without knowing what school the job was going to be at. I had an interview at the central office building, and they said, "Well, we want to hire you. Um, in the next couple of weeks, we'll set up building interviews for you where we have social studies openings, and we'll figure out where you'll land from there. But you will be teaching in Omaha." Um, so I did that for a year. When we were living in Omaha, my wife was working at a bank and experienced the trauma of the bank being robbed while she was working there. Um, that was kind of a she was okay not being in Omaha anymore after that. Um, and outside of that experience, we loved Omaha. It's a great place. But my wife just has no desire to live there. Um, I applied for and got a teaching and coaching job in Aurora, Nebraska. Fantastic community. I got to work with. We had the same football coaching staff for the entire 10 years that I was there. Guys that I still talk to. We still get together a couple times a year. And it's 12 years since I've left there, and we still talk regularly. I just got a text this morning from one of them. It was a great place, and I feel like I learned a lot beyond just the X's and O's of coaching when I was in Aurora. Guy by the name of Randy Hubert was the head football coach. Um, he's since retired and now working for FCA Nebraska. But I mean, he called it adding value, and he always had a roster of our football team and would make sure that he would interact with every kid on that roster throughout the school day. A positive interaction, telling that kid something good that they did. And I mean, he'd have little tick marks on the roster. So he could see, oh man, I haven't caught up with Johnny very much lately. I got to make sure I go say something positive to him. And man, that's something I've carried with me, not just coaching, but as an administrator since then, making sure you're touching base with your people, find something positive that they're doing, and specifically highlight that. Um, and from Aurora, I spent 9 years as the assistant principal and AD at Logan View High School. Um, and then about a year and a half ago, kind of took a leap of faith and came to O'Neill. It's been a phenomenal move for my family. My son is a senior and very much into hands-on learning. He's He's taken a construction class where there's 2 class periods a day. So far this year, they've built a garage, a deck, a couple sheds, and that's what he's going to go to school for after high school. Um, he plays basketball and golf for us. My daughter is a freshman this year, and she's an officer in our FCCLA chapter. She played golf for us. She's also involved in our one act play, our speech team. And so my kids are definitely spanning the array of athletics and activities that you can be involved in, and that's been fun. I know when they were younger, it's challenging, and you live that life. Sometimes you miss things when they're younger. But that's the nice thing about being the AD is when they're involved in something at school, it's, hey, we might have multiple things to supervise today, but I'm going to supervise the one that my kids are involved in. And, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of 2 different teams that understand that and had kids involved as well. And we work well and help each other out. So everything gets covered, but you still get to see your kids.
Boy, I really appreciate you sharing that journey. And I've got a pretty mundane question, but bear with me here. Okay, you talked in your journey. You talked about that first year you had at the end of the year. You loved the school, but you got that reduction in force. I'm not trying to top you, but I had that in Oregon. 3 consecutive jobs, 3 years in a row. It's a head football coach, but that RIF notice comes through, last hired, first fired. Um, some job changes are because of things that happen with your family. You mentioned, your wife. Some job changes for me, I was climbing that ladder. I wanted to be a head coach, wanted to be at a bigger school. Um, and the reasons are probably endless. Um, what's the situation for you? Again, you're born and raised, your whole career's been in Nebraska. When that riff comes through, or when you decide, hey, we need a new challenge or we need a new opportunity, what's the process? How do you find out about those next opportunities in Nebraska?
Um, yeah, with the RIF notice, that's been 20 plus years ago, so it was still, go to the Sunday newspaper and what's going to be open. Um, that's kind of evolved to internet-based searches now. I know I wasn't necessarily looking a couple years ago, but my first year as an AD at my previous school, the district wrestling tournament we participated in was hosted at the school where I am now. And I got to know my predecessor there. I was the first year AD, probably annoying the heck out of him. Like, when you host something like this, what do you do? How'd you set this up? Um, and so we kind of had a relationship throughout my entire career. And when I saw this job advertised, first thing I did was pick up my phone and call him and say, "What's going on?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just retiring." My wife and I have been here for 32 years and we're going to retire together. And, um, so I asked him a couple questions I said, "Well, I noticed it's not assistant principal AD, it's just AD." And he goes, "Yep, for all 23 years I had the job. And for the 9 years the person before me had it, it's just activities director." I thought, wow, like that's a great deal. And he said, "Well, can I tell the superintendent and principal that you're interested?" And I said, "Yeah, go ahead. Tell them to look for my stuff." And I brought my family with me on the interview because, like I said, I had a son that was going to be a junior and a daughter that was going to be an eighth grader, and a wife that I'm going to ask to move 2.5 hours. Um, so, I wanted them to be a part of it. And, uh, they looked around town while I was interviewing and they got to tour the school with me. And I vividly remember getting in the car after the school tour to drive back home and said, "Well, what's everybody think? If I get this offer, what do we want to do?" And my son immediately said, "I can go to school there." And I'm like, okay, that that we're all on the same page because I walked away feeling like, man, if I get this offer, I want to say yes. So I hope my family's on board, and that answer gave me what I was looking for.
Boy, that's great. And again, for our listeners, particularly those young listeners who are at the beginning of their career. Nate, you're probably in the middle. I'm way, way at the end. But um, those are some important steps, in finding what we talk about, the right fit. It might be a good fit for you, but what's the job like? What's the community like? And your family, is it going to be a good fit for them? Great stuff. Let's go and take another quick break. Once again, our guest today is Nate Larsen. He's the activities director at the O'Neill Public Schools, and that's in O'Neill, Nebraska. We're going to hear about that in just a minute, but let's hear from our sponsors. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Snap Raise for their support. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. It's snapraise.com. We also want to thank our friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. Sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank our friends at Gipper. Your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world-class content in seconds. Maybe it's just a social media post celebrating a victory. It could be an entire newsletter that is sharing all the great things your program is doing in the community. Either way, go to Gipper.com. It's used and trusted by over 20,000 high school and college programs. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com. You're going to be glad you did. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Nate, you mentioned, that process a little bit of how you ended up at O'Neill. I'm going to put you on the spot. What were a couple of things that just really stuck out to you about the school? Obviously, the community and your family, but what were some things that really impressed you about the school? And then also, what are some things, since you've been at O'Neill, what are some initiatives that you're particularly proud of?
Absolutely. I guess one of the first things I notice about the community, very similar in size to Aurora, and that was a place that my wife and I both really really loved. Great size of school for our kids. Um, the community has the benefit of the small town feel while also still having everything you could possibly need. So from a community standpoint, that's one of the first things that had us saying, okay, let's take a look. Um, knowing my predecessor, Nick, and getting a chance to talk with him about the job, I thought, okay, he spoke very highly of the coaching staff that I was going to be able to work with, if I got the job. So I applied, and then seeing the facilities. We've got a new addition to the school that took place about 5 years ago. Several new classrooms, a new commons area, and just a first-rate gym. with 4 new locker rooms that went in. So, I tell everybody now, I wish I could take credit for it, but our gym has 3 press boxes in it. So there's a stairway behind one of the walls where the bleachers are that you can walk up, and then upstairs at center court, we've got an overhead door that opens, and it's our student broadcasting group that has that box. And then on either side of it, 2 more overhead doors for radio broadcasts that want to come in and do games. So I tell everybody now, if you're building a gym, man, plan for that because it is phenomenal. Now you don't have to worry about radio broadcasters being seated at a tight table in the bleachers or picking up too much background noise from there because they've got their own booth.
Let's go down that path. A number of schools just do a great job with that. Um, is that something that you are, let's say, deeply involved with? You're doing um, hands-on work, or do you have a coach or a faculty member that kind of takes on that particular role? Certainly, you have oversight as the AD, but how involved are you with the student broadcast, student streaming, social media, all that stuff?
Um, I'd say that's one of the incredibly unique things about O'Neill. We've got a group called Eagle Eye Broadcasting, and we've got a staff member that is in charge of that. But they are also their own small business. They're a member of our local chamber of commerce, so they kind of double as not only a class, but they are a functioning business of their own, and they do a phenomenal job. All of our home events. Sorry for that little background noise there. All of our home events are going to be broadcast on Eagle Eye. The varsity level events, we've got kids doing play-by-play for it, and it's just incredible. We are very, very fortunate to have that.
Yeah, and that's certainly something I encourage all athletic directors to try and develop, not to add another job to their plate, but to um, make their school that next level school because the kids are on social media, a lot of the parents are, and if you can have that, let's say, production value to get the message out there. I always say the people in the community, they're going to talk about your school, they're going to talk about your program anyway. Give them something positive to talk about. Share all the great things that you're doing. At my school in Miami, we had a faculty member. He was also our cross country coach, but he had a whole course on that, and the students did it. I didn't have to do a thing. Okay, I just had to create a space for them, either in the gym or at our press table. So, and listeners, you've got people like that. You have faculty members, you have students. The students know more than the adults most of the time on this type of stuff. Get them
No doubt about
involved.
that.
Uh, um, we're going to continue to go down that path. Talk about how that aspect of your athletic department, because it is, has, let's say, paid some dividends for you, maybe in other ways beyond just providing a stream of a game.
Well, I think a big part of it and something that was recent, was we just added video boards, one at our football field and one at our gym. And that was based on feedback that I got when I took the job was, when the gym was built, there was space left for a video board. But as with a lot of construction projects, funds were running short by the end of it. So you cut the frills. And so the video board didn't get put in when the gym was done. And people were wanting to see that. And, our football field scoreboard was several decades old. And, people were saying we need to replace that. And if we're going to replace it, let's at least look into getting a video board out there. So as I was going around talking to our businesses in town and getting some support through partnerships with those businesses to be able to help pay for those things, one of the things I was able to sell to them was the promotional value that they're going to get not only from those boards themselves, but from the Eagle Eye Broadcasting. So, by partnering with us, by helping us accomplish this goal, passing period's over. By helping us accomplish this goal, you're not just going to get exposure for the people that are at the game, but you're going to get exposure on the live stream as well. And Eagle Eye Broadcasting is a known commodity in town, so people responded very, very well to that.
Boy, what a great number of things. Great service to the community, great service to the sponsors, great benefit to the school, student athletes, coaches, et cetera, through those sponsorships and programs. Nate, we're going to do this at the at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, maybe about Eagle Eye or about something else, what's the best way that our listeners can connect with Nate Larsen?
Yeah, the email or cell phone is fine. My email address is Nate Larsen, Larsen, the number 33 at gmail.com. And my cell number's 402-540-7310. And I'm happy to share anything and everything.
Well, again, we're going to give that out at the end of the podcast. And for our NIAAA members, Nate's information is also in the NIAAA membership portal. So let's go and take another break. I know that's shocking for our regular listeners, but we are going to come back with more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to our good friends at Home Campus for their support of the podcast. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results, communication. Their student athlete eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get started, go to homecampus.com. Even if your state uses another platform, you can still use Home Campus for the athlete clearance and other features. That's homecampus.com. We want to say thanks to the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, and it was just a great experience. Totally online, very affordable, just 20 months. And while you're earning your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get more information, just call 800-730-2753, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Hometown Ticketing. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And if you go to hometownticketing.com, their team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets, not just for athletic events, but for things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. hometownticketing.com. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Nate Larsen. Nate, we have young ADs, new ADs, we have some veteran ADs that listen. And I think it's important for them to hear about the journey that we all take with our state association as well as with the NIAAA. So how did you first get involved with the Nebraska Association, which I know is huge, and then also share your NIAAA journey?
Yeah, I was really fortunate. Nebraska has a really good mentoring program set up, and between our state ADs association and our state activities association, prior to my first year, there was basically a kickoff, kind of like a what to expect, and just some general information that will be helpful to you as you start your AD job. And the person that got assigned to me as a mentor after that, you're probably familiar with the late Bill Fitzgerald, citation and DSA winner, served as the chair of the publications committee for the NIAAA. So he was phenomenal for me in terms of just helping me get involved, telling me how to get involved. My first year, I took we had 501 and 502 at our state conference, so I took those classes. I was fortunate that it was my turn in the admin rotation to go to a national conference that year, so I took four more classes at the national conference at National Harbor. And then we had our spring awards banquet. I took two more classes. So by the time my first year as an AD was done, I had every class that I needed for my CAA. So I just needed to finish my second year of experience. I had a district who supported me in terms of helping pay for those leadership training courses. I know not everybody has that, um, but I'm here to tell you, man, they're worth every penny. I've gotten way more out of those types of things than any dollar amount could probably be assigned to those. But I finished my second year. I took the CAA exam and achieved that in 2016. At that point, I had probably taken 15 or 16 leadership training courses, and I was able to run for a district representative spot on our state association board, and was elected to that position. Continued taking leadership training courses, going to our section meetings, and then the opportunity to become our state coordinator became available. So I gave up the district representative spot and took over as our state leadership training coordinator. Also took over as our state vice president that year and went through that process. Just finished up my year as past president for the NSI and still serve as our state coordinator. I finished my CMAA project in 2018. That was redoing our emergency action plans for the school I was at the time. And then shortly after that, was able to participate in the leadership cohort through the NIAAA. And for those of you that have your CMAA certification, man, what an experience. I can't recommend that highly enough. Getting to work with people like Daryl Nance and Becky Moran and Mike Elson and Jamie Sheets and Todd Sabrilski. I mean, Hall of Famers. And if they're not yet, they will be. And just the people that share that cohort journey with you. I Fortunate may not be the right word, but it was during the COVID year that our cohort was going. So we had that resource of people from around the country as we're going through an incredible crisis as an AD. I've got a wealth of information from states around the country. What are you doing? How'd you guys address this? And we had those meetings and everybody sharing that information with one another. From there, I was able to serve on the credentials committee for the NIAAA. And I was on the national faculty for 627, which is strength and conditioning, and got to be a part of this last year, authoring LTC 718 with a tremendous group of people, and we taught that for the first time in Austin. And that's an incredible experience. If you've got something that you feel like is worth sharing, and something that can benefit everybody, man, get a group of 4 or 5 people together and submit that proposal to write a class, because I believe as a state coordinator, the leadership training courses are some of the best resources we have for professional growth as ADs. And then at this last conference, I ran for the Region D at-large spot on the board of directors, and was fortunate enough to be successful in that endeavor. So just started my term on the board.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing all of those steps. And it's just another great example to anybody who's listening that, people that end up as reps on the national board, people that get a DSA or whatever. It doesn't just happen. It starts years earlier by, well, making that decision to go to a state conference, to take that course, to volunteer, to serve on a committee. All of those steps, led to, every next step in that journey. So thanks for sharing that. Uh, and again, the cohort experience. When I got my CMAA, I was thinking, well, gosh, I'm still going to take courses, but is there anything else? And being a part of that very first cohort is still one of the most phenomenal experiences that I've ever had. And you're absolutely right. Still in touch with people from that cohort group. So appreciate you sharing. Um, Looking back on those early days when you're first knocking out those LTI courses, the 501s, et cetera, maybe even after your CAA. Um, I don't expect you to remember the number and the exact name, but was there a class or a component of a particular class that you remember it really hit you hard? Boy, this is cool. I got to bring it back. Or the other side, boy, this is really important. I better bring this back.
Yeah, I would say honestly, the legal courses, um, and as much as they help you, I mean, also just scare the heck out of you, because they go through and, basically with the 14 legal duties, like this is what they look like. After taking those legal courses, some of the resources in the course material, being able to conduct your own Title IX self audit, like, hey, I mean, I think we're doing everything, that we should be, but, let's go through this process and make sure that we are. Um, again, the resources available from those courses, beyond just, I mean, the 4 hours that you're spending there and the camaraderie and the connection that you get with the people that are taking the class with you. But the resources that you have in the appendices from those courses, phenomenal. I guess
Yep.
something else that I've probably used more recently would be like the 611, the branding and the fundraising. With the partnerships that we did here in O'Neill, um, with both getting our video boards and then working with our booster club and our youth wrestling club and our school board. We just purchased a custom made 5 circle wrestling mat. So, I mean, picture the Olympic rings, but separated. Um, that's what we have in our main gym now for our wrestling tournament. So we've got 5 mats in our main gym and 3 in our secondary gym, both custom design, um, and we're able to have 8 mats running for our boys and girls wrestling tournament. We had I want to say it was right at about 40 teams and more than 400 competitors here, about 1,000 matches the first week in December. Um,
Boy, that's again just another great example of making something work at your school district with your community and with your kids. Nate, this has been s- such a great time. I wish we had more time to spend, but you're actually still working for a living while I'm retired. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you contributed to this toolbox about 500 episodes ago. So I'm curious to see what tools you're going to share. But let's go ahead and hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this particular segment. When we come back, I'm going to ask you to send out, again, a brand new AD on the very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in the toolbox. So, like I said, let's hear from Athletic Surveys, and then we're going to see what Nate Larsen is going to put into his new AD toolbox. Of course, we want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Now, Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to that group so you can hear their concerns and hopefully address them. But they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And having that type of data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Nate Larsen, a certified master athletic administrator and the director of activities for the O'Neill Public School System in O'Neill, Nebraska. As you've heard, he has a tremendous background in athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new AD on their very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Nate, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Uh, I think you have to start with a network, and I'm going to approach that two different ways. Number one, from maybe a mentoring side of things, especially just starting out. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's people that have been doing this and have learned from their experiences. Beg, borrow, and steal what you can from that network. And then, but also use that network to open some doors for yourself. Don't be afraid. I know it can be daunting that first time you get a call from Phil Risen saying, "Hey, do you want to present a session at the national conference?" And you're sitting here going, "Gee, like, why the heck is he calling me?" Um, you know, that phone call is happening because of what you've done and the connections that you've made. Take advantage of that and be a part of that network for somebody else. Share what you know. Um, I think the networking is huge, both from building yourself up as you're getting started and then sharing with others, your experiences and the things that you've done, because that can go a long way into helping them. Um, I guess I would say to some extent also a sense of humility. And that's something that probably 27-year-old Nate maybe wasn't as good at as 47-year-old Nate is, and 47-year-old Nate still has a ways to go. But understand that you don't necessarily have, nor do you have to have all the answers. Um, it's it's okay to rely on your team at school. When you're doing something, planning a wrestling tournament, for crying out loud, I didn't have a wrestling background. So I'm going to host a wrestling tournament. The first place I'm going is my wrestling coach. What do we need to do to make this a first class event? Okay. I had helped coach the throws in track, but I mean, never had I done anything on the scale of running an entire meet. So the first time I'm hosting a track meet, I am in my track coach's room. What do we need to do? And then even, maybe more so for the sports where you do feel like you've got all the answers, especially if you're going to a new place. Help me understand how we do things here. I know how I would have done things where I was before. How has it been done here? How can we marry those two things together and keep growing, keep being better? So that sense of humility in order to again kind of count on that network that you have at the school, I think is big. And then one other thing that I know I said the first time we talked is a work ethic. I mean, you can't do this job without it. It to me, it's the greatest job in the world. You'll get asked a lot as an AD, well, when are you going to apply for a principal job, or when are you going to apply for a superintendent job? And my answer is pretty consistently never. And it's not that those aren't and incredibly honorable positions filled by great people. But it's not what I want to do. I think we've got uh, the greatest job in the world, being able to watch kids, participate in athletics and activities and help provide those opportunities for them. And with that is going to come long hours. I mean, that's part of it. You're going to be the first one at school. You're going to be the last one out the door. But man, uh, you're not going to find a more rewarding experience out there than this job.
Well, I just love all the tools, and I love how you wrapped it up. And you're absolutely right. I'm sure you feel exactly the same way. Many times throughout my entire career, there would be a moment where I'd just go, I'm getting paid to do this. Parents would say, "Oh, I'd hate to have your job. You're here late at night closing up the gym and parents and all this stuff." And I said, "No, no, you don't understand. You have to be here to watch your kid. I'm getting paid to come here and hang out with coaches and kids and sometimes parents." But you're right. We, we've got a great job. Nate, thanks again for coming back on and sharing your wisdom. Once again, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, how can they get a hold of Nate Larsen?
Yep, it's Nate Larsen, NATELARSEN, the number 33 at gmail.com, or 402-540-7310. Yeah, I'd love to talk and share anything that I have that can help you, and pick your brain to help myself get better.
Well, thanks for sharing with our listeners. All the best as we continue with 2025. Hey, you're going to have to get me out to Nebraska to present. I'm going to throw a name at you, Darren Boyson. He had me out a few years ago, gosh, maybe 10 years ago, to speak at one of his programs. So I've been to Nebraska and it was great, but would love to come out again. But seriously, all the best.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for the invite, Jake.
For our listeners, we want to let you know that we appreciate you and just remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of every interview to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We try to share stories and best practices. So come back and join us again for the next edition of the Educational AD Podcast.